14th regular meeting of the Planning Commission. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. At the beginning of each of these meetings, we provide an opportunity for members of the public to speak on an item that is not on the agenda for today. By a show of hands, do we have anybody that would wish to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? All right, thank you very much. We will move on to the next order of business. But real quick, before we get started, could we get a show of hands? I'd like to see who's here for the Z4325 Litchford Road case. All right, thank you very much. And who's here for Z526 New Bern assemblage? Okay, thank you very much. Given that, we will keep our current order of business. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and the only thing we have on the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes. Have commissioners had an opportunity to review the minutes and ask, are there any changes that need to be requested? Any updates? If there are no comments, would someone please be willing to give us a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve as written.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Thank you. That looks like it's unanimous. 7-0. All right. Coming up next, we'll begin our old business. First case on the agenda is rezoning 4325, 6309 Litchford Road. We are going to open the public hearing. For each item, the staff will make a short presentation, and the applicant...
Chairman, I'm sorry, I have a question about the minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
I made a comment at the end of the meeting, and it's not in the minutes.
Commissioner, could you please use your mic? Could you please use your mic?
Sorry about that. I made a comment at the end of the meeting that's not in the minutes, and I did want to make that point.
Absolutely. I believe we'll have to vote to reopen that item. Do we need to re-vote on the agenda?
Yeah, if we could just have a motion to add that comment and a second to amend the minutes, that would be fine.
So moved.
I make a motion to add the comment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to add Commissioner Omakaye's comment. Would you like to
Repeat it?
Yes, please.
Yes, I made a comment that I feel like this Board of Commission could do well with some implicit bias training, and that I didn't like how the text change committee chair was picked because I wasn't considered, nor was there a discussion about us even needing a new text change committee chair. So I just want to make sure those are in the minutes.
Thank you for your comments.
And just a point of clarification, our clerk will go back and review the minutes, review the video, and whatever was stated publicly will be included.
Thank you very much. All right. Moving on to old business, rezoning Z4325 Litchford Road. We're going to open the public hearing now. For each item, the staff will make a short presentation, and the applicant and those in favor will have 10 minutes to speak, and the opposition will have 10 minutes to speak. I'm reading it as if we're opening this as a new item from my script, and I realize halfway through that this has already been presented, and the public hearing is still open, and the public comment has already occurred, so I'm amending this script on the fly here. Y'all stick with me. We're going to allow staff a moment to update us on the updates to the case since the last presentation, and then we will bring it back to the commission table for discussion. All right. Turn it over to staff now. Thank you.
Hiram Marziano, Planning and Zoning. Again, this is rezoning case Z4325. Just quick brief refresher on this. It's 6309 Litchford Road. It is a through parcel over to Johnsdale Road as well. The request is to rezone 3.79 acres from R4 to R10 CU. Your deadline for discussion on this and decision on this is May 9th. No changes were submitted since the last time you heard this. Again, just a quick where we are in the city. There's Millbrook High School to the west. Proposed conditions prohibit boarding house as a use, prohibit the apartment building type. They have to do some historic preservation documentation on the existing structure prior to demolition or salvage. Limit the dwelling units to 54 units, and requires double silt fencing during development. Sorry, that should be say super silt now. That was amended prior to the last one. My apologies. Just a quick dimensional standards here. Nearest bus route isn't that far away, but there's no direct access via sidewalk or any other pedestrian access. It is inconsistent with the low-scale residential designation on the future land use map, which at max would typically indicate an R6 zoning type, not an R10. Is consistent largely with the comprehensive plan itself, inconsistent with the future land use map. There is no urban form guidance for this area. Just quick brief list of typical policies that this is consistent with: compact development, housing variety, neighborhood scale housing, inconsistent policies, future land use map, and zoning consistency. Upcoming meeting would be April 28th, would be the last chance before the May 9th deadline to make a recommendation to City Council. We are recommending that should this be recommended for approval, that the area be amended from low-scale residential to moderate-scale residential. And that's what I got.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the commission table at this time. The public hearing is still open, so depending on the will of the commission, we could elect to ask questions if anybody has any outstanding issues they would like to investigate.
If I may, I do believe there was some time left on both applicant and opposition.
Oh, my apologies. Is that in the minutes?
It wasn't much. There was like 2 minutes left on the in favor side. I don't believe the opposition had much more than that either. I thought it was in the minutes, but I might have misread.
Without opposition, how about we allocate 3 minutes to each side to hear updates? 3 minutes to each side, please.
My apologies. I meant to go back yesterday and look, but time got away.
And so we'd happy to hear from the applicant if they would wish to address.
Good morning, Chair Otwell and the members of the Planning Commission. Toby Coleman with Smith Anderson here on behalf of the property owner and applicant for this rezoning. The main reason, if you may recall from about a month ago, the main reason we continued this was because we had been asked to consider a zoning condition that prohibited vehicular access to Johnsdale Road, which is the local road on the west side of the property. We talked with both the NCDOT and City Transportation about a potential zoning condition to prohibit vehicular access to Johnsdale Road, and they both discouraged us from offering up that restriction. The reasoning being that DOT has indicated that on Litchford that the only movement out that they will allow will be a right out. So in other words, everybody's gonna have to turn right out of that site onto Litchford. There will be no left out. And what was pointed out to us in the conversations we had with City Transportation in particular, and I'm showing it a little bit on this map, is that Johnsdale effectively is a loop that goes here. And so basically, even if you cut off direct vehicular access to Johnsdale, what the city expected, and I think it makes sense, is that people taking a right out on Litchford that want to go left would just immediately turn right onto Johnsdale and go up. And so given that, we were told, that there was a real preference not to do that, and that it wouldn't necessarily mitigate the impact that the neighbors were concerned about. Again, this is and that is not in any way to downplay the neighbors' traffic concerns. You heard about those at the last meeting, and I'm sure you may hear about them again. But a lot of those are existing traffic and not traffic necessarily being created by this project. The other thing that there's been a big question is why R10 and not R6? And the short answer is that R10 gives us a little bit more flexibility. So with R6, what we did to get to the 54 unit cap is we asked staff to run what's known as an envision report that tells you what is the maximum number of units that can be built under a particular zoning. Staff told us that under R6, you could get a maximum of 54 units. That's why we have the 54 unit cap. So although we're technically, because we labeled it as R10, we are actually functioning at a R6 density. And so in many ways, we do actually comply with the comprehensive plan. The issue is just really a labeling issue. And so it's not necessarily that we're asking you guys to disregard the plan. So that's all. Available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. And now we have 3 minutes for those opposed. I would urge y'all to choose a representative since time is short. All right, thank you. You can state your name for the record, please.
Philip Brown, resident of Johnsdale Road. We met with Mark Silver a week and a half ago. He also agreed that the DOT has failed in this regards to the traffic on our street, given that our roads are only 17 feet wide, no curb, no gutter, no sewer, no egress and ingress for residents of anything being easily done. We don't believe this represents a comprehensive plan at all. Mr. Silver wrote the plan back in the early 2000s and said this was to remain a low-density area and should remain as such. This is not compatible with the surrounding area as part 2 of our beliefs. The proposed development is too big, it's too large. We believe if you kept it single-family homes on large lots, matching the neighborhood, matching the other residents on our street, you will then lessen the impact of the transport and transportation on our street. Millbrook High School is putting 1,900 plus cars up and down our street 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, not including sports events that occur all evenings, all hours of the night, all the way up to 10 or 11:30. The infrastructure just can't handle it. No curb, no sewer, no gutters. The environmental impact, not having the ability to get rid of wastewater. We're all on septics, wells. We've had several residents from adjoining apartments to the south of Johnsdale leaching their floodwaters onto our land, causing sewers and septics to overflow into the streets, into people's yards, into their backyard pools, causing environmental impacts and negative impacts. Safety, we lost a young girl on our street. I mentioned that last time. She was hit and killed by a pedestrian on our street. The month of February, we had, I believe, a student was hit by a car. Where are you going to walk? You put city services on Wednesdays, trash pickup. You then create landmines that you have to navigate. We have several family members that have small children walking their families at all times of the day, having to dodge cars. We have videos of near impacts. It's just one thing after another. We don't believe that 54 dwelling units in a R4 neighborhood should stand. The infrastructure is not there. The comprehensive plan is not there. It should remain low residential. Put 12 homes on there. As I stated before, you give everybody half an acre, everybody's happy. Then we would be happy to welcome them into our neighborhood. You would not need access to Litchford Road. You would only need access to Johnsdale. We can handle 12 family units with a couple of cars per dwelling unit, and it would match the aesthetic of the neighborhood. It would blend into the transition from large family homes on large lots, and the comprehensive plan would then still be in perpetuity forever. Our covenants state 1 family home per dwelling unit per lot, and it would match the aesthetic of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. At this time, we'll bring it back to the commission table for questions. Commissioner Neptune.
Thank you, Mr. Otwell. First, I'd like to begin by thanking all of the residents who are, I believe, here with us this morning for taking time out of your day to be with us for the hearing. I also want to express my appreciation for all of the emails. I believe every commissioner here has received them. I know I've read them, and I think they are very well and concisely articulated here. I mean, I think at the end of the day, as a commissioner, what it sounds like we're hearing, I mean, there are significant quality of life concerns on behalf of this community, especially with regard to how we're handling transportation and traffic. I mean, in the context of being immediately adjacent to this high school. And I will say, this is something I'm very sensitive to. I mean, for many years, I've lived next door to an elementary school, to a middle school, or at least a few blocks away. And even just being a few blocks away, I have seen how traffic can build up in that context. I've managed a food hall near an elementary school and a middle school, and I've seen how traffic can build up, creating very unsafe conditions for everyone involved. So with that said, I would like to start with a question for our colleagues from Raleigh Transportation, who I see in the audience. I won't call you out by name because I tell you what, I have nothing but respect and appreciation for what you do. As some folks may recall, I've served for many years on the City of Raleigh Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission, so I appreciate all of our efforts as a city to invest in the improvement of the safety and the quality of our streets. I think the first question that comes to mind for me is, could Raleigh Transportation speak to the impact of these potential 54 units within the context of this rezoning?
Yes, so good morning, Carter Robertson with City Transportation. So with every rezoning request, what we do is Hiram earlier showed the table showing the units you could build before and after the rezoning request. What we do is we take those numbers, we run those through what we call a trip generation model, and that estimates how many trips we could expect under the proposed zoning and the increase in zoning. So in this scenario, the current zoning we estimate would generate about 238 trips a day. Going up to the new request would generate about 396 a day. And so when you break that down, it's a difference of about 158 daily trips and around 20 in either of the PM peak hours. And just to clarify, that's the difference between current zoning and proposed zoning, the max you could build. So that's not necessarily what's there on the ground today versus what might be built. Does that?
I think that answered the question. I just want to make sure I heard that clearly.
figures.
Could you just articulate one more time how many more trips will we see?
150 more per day with an increase in the zoning entitlements.
Okay. Well, with that, I do want to acknowledge, I appreciate, first of all, thank you to our colleagues from Raleigh Transportation. I appreciate you speaking to that increase in trips. I do want to also acknowledge, I appreciate the work of the applicant in, I think, making a good faith effort to meet the suggested future land use for this area. In other words, if I'm not mistaken, I think the future land use calls for a low scale sort of density, right? And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that maxes out with an R6 rezoning. But I think as the applicant stated, you know, they pursued R10 to have a bit more flexibility, I think, in how they can configure their actual development, but then putting conditions on it to effectively mimic an R6 rezoning. So with that, I just want to, again, express my appreciation for that good faith effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Neptune. Are there any more questions for the applicant or Commissioner Walter?
I actually have some more questions for transportation. Sorry, you getting your steps in here. Okay. Yeah, I just want to echo Commissioner Neptune's concern about traffic safety. I feel like that's a real sticking point for me here. It's been a kind of hard case for me because I can see benefits on both sides. In your traffic study, did you increase understanding of what those additional trips, how they were affecting traffic on Johnsdale Road and specifically cut through to Johnsdale Place? Or, you know, or are some of these on Litchford? You know, I think I'd love a little bit more understanding of how you see it impacting traffic for these neighbors specifically, especially with their concerns about safety that I think are really valid.
Right. So at this stage of the process, that analysis I was referring to earlier, that's just a simple calculation of trips to and from the site. Mm-hmm. So we haven't done a thorough analysis about where we think these trips are going to go. Because at this stage, even though we're increasing the zoning entitlement, it could be the 54 townhomes. It could still be a single-family home. We're just looking at the entitlements right now. So usually that would come more at the site plan stage. We have talked about circulation a little bit with this discussion around access. So to just kind of provide a little more context, the reason there were some concerns about full access from NCDOT was the alignment of this Malay Drive for the apartment complex right across the road. So that offset creates some safety and operational issues. So, so given that, looking at the right-ins, right-outs, we think that most of this traffic, if there was access onto Johnsdale, we're evaluating both of these intersections, Johnsdale intersections, for signals right now. So if the southern one were to be signalized, we think that any access on the Johnsdale would be coming out to get to that signal, to go north or turn out right easier. And then if we had one on the north and not the south, vice versa.
So you could imagine a right in, right out on Litchford, and then most people going to Johnsdale Road to get out if they wanted to turn left.
Yes.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Is it the opinion of our colleagues with city transportation that the streetscape in and around this rezoning that we're discussing right now would be adequate in meeting the city's standards for what we would, want to see in this context, if assuming the site was rezoned and we move forward with it?
Well, I guess definitionally, it isn't to our UDO standards. There's no curb and gutter. The pavement width is narrower than what we would require for a new street. So,
can I tell you, I really appreciate that honest response on behalf of our colleagues with city staff, because I'll tell you, I've been losing sleep over this, to be very honest with you. And I had to pull out the whole comprehensive plan, which is like a 600+ page document. And there was a specific section here on, evaluating these rezonings in the context of the future land use map, and it specifically calls out, will the community facilities and streets be available at city standards to serve the use of this proposed property? And right now, I don't think I'm prepared to move forward on this item. I think I see that we have a deadline for action for May 9th, 2026. And so I just know, I think for myself, I would feel comfortable deferring on this. I would like to go visit the site. But right now, based on what I'm hearing, if the city doesn't feel as if it meets adequate standards,
Yeah.
I think if there was a motion to deny, I could see myself supporting that. Because right now, it's very difficult for me, given the diminishment of the quality of life for these residents. Again, I respect the good faith effort that the applicant made in pursuing this rezoning, but unfortunately, I don't think that the city infrastructure supports it.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Thank you, Commissioner Neptune. Commissioner Burnett?
Yes, to piggyback off of what Commissioner Neptune said, when you're talking about disrupting the quality of life, that's one thing. But there are a couple of points regarding to the applicant. So I drove Johnsdale Road last week on the way home. Beautiful street, very serene, but obviously you're going to have the noise and the general, just noise like from the traffic from Litchford Road. And I think it is, I don't want to say disingenuous, but I mean, when you have a proposed development of that scale dropped on top, because it would literally be dropped on top of that neighborhood, I think that makes it a open and shut case for me. Also, that a child lost their life. I mean, we're talking about precedent. We are in an economy where, we're in a market-based economy. When I saw the apartments going in across the street, I was like, wow, that's a lot of apartments across the street. 200 or 300 units. So I thought that was a lot. Then I see this home that sits on this huge lot that sits far back. And I think to the gentleman from the community, 12 homes, I think is just much more respectful of the community. I think it's just much more, it's a better grade down. I mean, you have, let's just call it 200 units across the street. And now on the other side, 50 units on top of a residential, relatively quiet / moderate street. I think that's good. I think it's more respectful for their quality of life and for safety. And if you have young children, there may be more young children in the future. Also, I don't think that a lot of people will. I've seen the people drive on Litchford Road. I don't think a lot of the people that are trying to go left will go right and drive down Johnsdale. Not to tell on myself, but I think that what most people will do is turn right, hit the median, and go left, and create more risky situations. You got school buses, you got kids, you've got cars that are parked over there, so on and so forth. There's a myriad of reasons why I just don't think that the zoning makes sense for that area. I think the R6 is more appropriate. I think it's better for quality of life, and I think it's a better transition from across the street to that side of the street where the residents are. And so for me, I definitely would not be able to support it.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Yeah, so at this time, I'm going to go ahead and Commissioner Mackay, did you have any questions for staff or comments?
I had a question.
Okay, well, please go ahead.
So I know that one of the things that we were talking about was traffic, and that is a major concern. But one of the other things that I also agree with my commissioners on is the neighbor came up and spoke so eloquently. He made great points that that can't be, disputed. It not being to UDO standards is a problem. My main issue is the septic tank situation and other people's waste flowing into their neighbors' yards that could then eventually cause some sort of biohazard. So I wanted to call that out too, because with stormwater, that would maybe increase that issue.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and close the public hearing. I'm sorry.
Someone that has a comment. You have a response? I think she had a
Was there a question, Commissioner Mackay, that you had for stormwater?
Has stormwater done any testing in this area to see with what the neighbors are talking about with the runoff from the septic tanks or other people's waste?
Thank you.
So stormwater has not been involved in this area. Septic tanks are actually a county issue, but I can speak to that there is sewer available and would be provided for this site.
And a drainage map was. As far as the environmental health stuff, we did reach out to the county. They gave us back that they've not done extensive testing in this area either. But the way they approached it was they would come out when there is an issue, if notified. But they have not been, according to who I talked to at the county, there's not been reason for them to come out, and they don't have a lot of data on these older septics and wells in this area because the subdivision was so much older than some of their investigations and regulatory authority. So they don't have a lot of data regarding that. But as Sally did point out, there are connections available. Public utilities, we reached out to them as well to make sure that should anyone actually have a failing system, there are options for them.
All right, thank you. I think I'm going to, again, try to close the public hearing. Commissioners, I appreciate your comments, and I think that these are really well thought out, and they're having an effect on me, too. We've been asked by staff and council to try to separate our questions from our comments and discussions. So going forward, we're going to try to keep the public hearing open when the public speaks and we hear from the applicant, and then reserve time for the commission to ask questions. And sometimes that editorial line is fuzzy, I understand, but I'd like to use that time to gain information from the public or from the applicant or from staff, and then we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll have our discussions and make our cases for or against. And so I'd appreciate if y'all would help me work on that. But with the public hearing closed, is there any further discussion? Any comments? Commissioner O'Haver?
Yeah. I plan to vote against this. I just want to make a couple of comments. I think it's unfortunate I think the transportation issues outweigh the public interest of additional housing. I completely disagree that single-family homes on large lots are the right solution here. So I'm not voting against it because of that. You can do 32 units by right. 32 units are going to be built on this site. The 150 additional trips a day, that's a program. That's 7 to 10 trips per unit, which is a lot. So there's going to be traffic here. There's going to be density. I'm voting against it. I hope when the site eventually gets developed, we can deal with some of the transportation issues, but single-family homes on large lots is not the answer.
Commissioner Walters.
Yeah, I just want to state my agreement with Commissioner Neptune and Commissioner O'Haver and the other commissioners that have spoken so far about the traffic issues. And I plan to vote not in favor of this, but I want to address the city and ask them to really consider the traffic issues here, because this is not an issue of density. I think that this is an issue, a traffic safety issue, and I hope they can hear us. We think this is important.
Thank you. Commissioner Neptune?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please go ahead.
I move to recommend adoption of the proposed consistency statement dated April 14th, 2026, contained in the agenda materials, and to recommend denial of the zoning amendment, zoning case number Z4325, address 6309 Litchford Road. After considering the policies, maps, and other materials included as a part of the comprehensive plan, the Planning Commission determines the proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the comp plan and other adopted plans, but inconsistent with the future land use map, and the request should be denied.
Thank you, Commissioner Neptune. We have a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Omakai seconds. All in favor by a show of hands? Against? Thank you. That's 8-1. And I'll say this is a very rare occasion for me. Y'all changed my mind at the table here. I was coming in prepared to vote for this, so appreciate your comments. Commissioner Shelburne, would you like to state your reason for opposition?
I don't think it makes sense to talk about traffic safety only in the context of increasing density. That is our pattern, which I don't think the solution to traffic safety is saying no to density.
Thank you, Commissioner Shelburne. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for attending, and thank you for your time.
Before
Thank
you all go,
staff.
can I make a comment really quickly? Not about this case necessarily, but just to the audience.
Please go ahead.
Please, if that's okay with the chair.
Please, briefly, please.
A lot of the issues that we're seeing going on in the city don't just impact where you all live. And sitting in on some of these other cases and putting your voice and strength behind similar cases where people are trying to preserve their livelihood, preserve the environment around where they stay, preserve the sovereignty of the home that they worked hard to get. Your support and solidarity in those cases is necessary also. So please, as much as, some of those cases come behind your cases so they can't help but hear some of your cases, your voice also helps to add to the context of, we're planning the city. And as planning the city, we're planning community. So I would just ask that you all consider to come to more planning commission meetings or get with other people who have cases that maybe they're for or against it. Not saying develop a coalition of opposition, but I am saying getting with people who have similar concerns to you in their parts of the city. Like, consider that also, because we're all in this together.
That's good.
Thank you, Commissioner Omakai. Okay. Moving on to our next order of business, we will move into new business. And first up on the docket is Z526, the New Bern Avenue assemblage. And we will hear a presentation from Hiram Marzano. I mispronounced it last time. Hiram. Hiram. I need to spell my phonetics out. Practice.
You can call me Marzi if it makes it easier.
Oh, yeah.
Marzi. That'll make it easier. All right.
Okay. I feel like maybe he's had this conversation before.
Good morning, Chair and Planning Commission. Matthew Clem, Raleigh Planning and Development. Just wanted to give some project history for the case before handing it over to Hiram, the case planner. So this is a rezoning request along New Bern Avenue, and it's regarding our investments in bus rapid transit and the equitable development around transit plan and station area planning for New Bern Avenue. So as we know, in 2016, Wake County voters passed a half-cent sales tax to fund the Wake County Transit Plan, and the regional transit model for the area shifted towards bus rapid transit. That was in 2016. In 2021, the City Council adopted the Equitable Development Around Transit Plan, which laid out the vision for transit-oriented development in Raleigh. Some of the key principles of transit-oriented development is to increase housing capacity within walking distance of high-frequency, high-capacity bus transit, which will be delivered by the bus rapid transit line, increasing a broader mix of uses in transit station areas so that folks living in the area can walk and have convenient access to a broad range of neighborhood-serving uses. Following the adoption of the Equitable Development Around Transit Plan, New Bern station area planning began. In May 2024, the City Council adopted ordinance to rezone 81 properties along New Bern Avenue as one of 5 actions they took in the rezoning of New Bern Avenue. In May 2024, the state legislature reverted that zoning decision. And they did that because some of the rezoning and the application of the transit overlay district would remove uses. So removing auto-oriented uses and drive-throughs made them no longer permitted under the transit overlay district. In the state size, this is considered a downzoning. And so they changed, reverted the rezoning and stated that if the city wanted to apply zoning that took away uses and conducted a downzoning, that the city would have to seek property owner signatures to apply that type of zoning. So the City Council directed staff to reach out to all of the property owners, the 81 properties that were zoned by the City Council and then unzoned by the act of the state, and say, of those, who would like to continue and ask for that type of zoning again? And 18 property owners signed the petition with the city, and we're bringing forward that to you now. And so just a bit of background on how we got here, and I will pass it over to Hiram.
Thank you. And Matthew took most of my comments. So just to briefly discuss, there's multiple addresses here. There were 81 properties that were reverted. 18 of those did sign the applications that were sent out. And we also opened up the engagement portal to accept people to be requested to join the rezoning through the engagement portal. And I believe you also received maybe 1 or 2 emails about someone's property wanting to also join in. Just want to point out those from the engagement portal and any emails were not in the analysis of our report. We based it solely on our application, but we are prepared to talk about those other properties so that if you wish to include them in any motions, we can. That being said, there are some historic overlay properties in this list. RHDC will be reviewing this case next month at their May 13th meeting. Your deadline for action will be June 13th. The map's kind of convoluted, so I've got some more zoomed in maps to go over when we get to the slides. I don't want you to think this is the only way we're looking at zoning. This is not that map. So zoning in this area is predominantly mixed use along the corridor with a lot of residential areas surrounding the corridor itself. A full list of all the 18 parcels is right here. I will point out this last one on the bottom, 1225 East Edenton Street. The property owner let us know last week they decided to remove their application. We had not removed it from your packets because it was Friday when we found out, but they have requested to withdraw their application as part of that, so it's really only 17 parcels that would be included. So 1225 East Edenton, the property owner has requested be removed. We'll point out that it would only be the UL frontage that was changing. So there's no benefit, no gain. Or in either way, it was just a cleanup matter of making sure there's no redundancies and that everything was on the surface manageable. So looking at the individual areas, I've starred the properties that are highlighted for you. 100 North Person Street currently is neighborhood mixed use 3 with urban limited frontage in a historic overlaid general district. Proposed would be going to downtown mixed use, 3 stories, urban limited frontage with HOD G. So it's just changing neighborhood mixed use to downtown mixed use. Similarly, neighboring properties 307 and 311 East Edenton Street are office mixed use 3 with urban limited HOD G, DX as well. 1302 Battery Drive. How's that one here? Oh, it's down there. No. Sorry, I might have the wrong type in there. Let me make sure. I apologize. There's a lot of moving parts. Yeah, it's in the wrong spot. My apologies. This should be 311 East Edenton Street. Right there, that last corner that's R10 with HOD G to DX is this one right here. R10 with HOD G requests to go to DX3 with HOD G. So basically taking that block to downtown mixed use, keeping it consistent with the zoning in the general area and development patterns for that New Bern corridor. Similarly, 15 South Bloodworth Street, office mixed use with neighborhood commercial conservation overlay district and HOD G to DX3, keeping the overlays in the request. And that's in the southern part of that map. Here we have 827 Cotton Place on that northeastern part here. They're in an office mixed-use district right now, office OX3, requesting the down zone to R10. This is one of the few that's actually reducing height requirements and voluntarily downzoning to a non-mixed-use district. 203 South Tarboro Street is currently R4, and they would like to apply the Transportation Overlay District. Here we have that 1225 East Edenton. It's this one right here. That's the one the person requested to remove. It is a split zoned parcel. But the neighbor 1241 New Bern Avenue, commercial mixed use 3 with urban limited with TOD, removing that urban limited frontage, staying CX3. This is where the Battery Drive one would be. I apologize again for my typo. R10 to R10 with Transportation Overlay District. This is the Battery Drive one. The one beside it is the one that's addressed off BART, but as you can clearly see, they have access on Battery Drive there as well. R10 to R10 with TOD as well, so just applying the Transportation Overlay District. 2 properties on Boyer Street, 1118 and 1122, both for RX3, residential mixed use 3 stories with TOD to add a story to RX4 with TOD. And the 1210 New Bern Avenue, neighborhood mixed use 3 with urban limited frontage, removing that urban limited frontage and adding a 4th story, retaining the TOD. Just a few more. 1313 New Bern Avenue, neighborhood mixed use with urban limited frontage. And 1401 as well, neighborhood mixed use 3 stories, urban limited frontage. Both of these would be removing the urban limited frontage and requesting the 4th story. 1601 New Bern Avenue, neighborhood mixed use with urban limited frontage to neighborhood mixed use 4 without the frontage. 1702 Pool Road, R10 with TOD, requesting to go to residential mixed use 3 stories with TOD. Slight increase in height with that one. I'm getting into the additional requests from property owners, but I wanted to, this is a lot, so I didn't know if you want me to stop and take any kind of questions on any of those maps or not.
Yes.
Or wait till the end.
Yeah, let's go ahead and finish
Okay.
the presentation, please.
Push through. So the additional requests we received in the portal were these 5. 1246 New Bern Avenue, 1250 New Bern Avenue, 1501 New Bern Avenue, 2345 New Bern Avenue, and 101 North Bloodworth Street. With the exception of Bloodworth Street, all these were actually in the original proposal that got reverted. They just didn't send in applications in time to meet the deadline to be part of the applied application. So here is 1246 and 1250 New Bern Avenue, same property owner requesting the rezoning from residential 3 with transportation overlay district to add a story to residential mixed use 4. It is in a neighborhood mixed use area. 1501 New Bern Avenue here is commercial mixed use 3 with urban limited frontage. They would like to go to commercial mixed use without the urban living frontage and 4 stories. The email y'all may have received with 1405 and 1507 New Bern Avenue are these 2 properties neighboring to it. We didn't add a slide for them, but just make you aware, these 2 parcels are NX3 with UL. The suggestion in the application we sent out would have maintained the NX3 and dropped the UL. So that would just be removing urban limited frontage, and they were included in the original request as well. And then 2345 New Bern Avenue, this is residential mixed use, 3 stories with green plus frontage inside of NCOD. The request is to remove the NCOD and keep all the base zoning characteristics. And finally, 101 North Bloodworth Street, R10 with Haji and NCOD. They would like to go to office mixed use 3, detached frontage with Haji and NCOD. I believe this was a separate rezoning case that came before y'all last year. Again, this one was not included in the original request. As the area is the New Bern corridor here, we have a higher walk score than average, higher bike score, higher transit score, transportation costs are low, and good access to jobs. A lot of transportation routes available in the corridor. This request adds housing supply, permits a variety of housing, does not include subsidized units. This is a general request, also not a conditional request. Hits a lot of our boxes, some significant statistics. Area residents are more likely to be racial minority as compared to the city average. Area residents are more likely to be lower income as compared to the city average. And rent in this area has increased approximately 30% since 2019. Consistent with the various flume categories for these properties. And the reason we're here is this is very consistent with the urban form map. This is where we're looking for growth and to densify things around those bus rapid transit corridors. The circles you see are the station area plans, so there's a station plan for the bus rapid transit in 1, 2, 3, 4 portions of this section. Consistent with the comprehensive plan, consistent with future land use map, and consistent with the urban form map. Various policies that it's consistent with. Inconsistent policies we've cited, zoning infrastructure impacts due largely to fire response time standards, some density transitions, and reinforcing that urban pattern. Upcoming meetings here, and your deadline for action is June 13.
Thank you, Hiram. At this time, we would normally provide 10 minutes for those in favor. I'm sorry, opposition goes first, right?
In favor goes first.
In favor goes first. I'm lost in my script. I just need to wing it.
It's a Tuesday.
Yeah, but I imagine that since applicant is the city and the city just presented, staff just presented, we will provide 10 minutes if there are additional.
There may be property owners.
Right, so we will continue to provide 10 minutes for those in favor. If there's anybody in favor that would wish to speak, please approach the podium.
Oh, you don't need it? No.
Hi, good morning. Molly Stewart. I am with Morningstar Law Group, and I am partly here in that capacity. I am also here as a resident of historic Oakwood. my home in the center, the heart of Oakwood, according to the historic Sanborn maps, was at one time, all at one time, occupied by a number of uses, including an awning maker, a grocer, and a barber. Those uses are gone today, but they were there in place at one time. I'm not just a resident of historic Oakwood. I'm also a city planner. I have a master's degree in city and regional planning. And as part of that process, I learned quite a bit about the history of city planning. And one of the key takeaways from that is that before zoning came in the 20s and 30s, and in Raleigh, specifically in 1923, the idea of a residential monoculture did not exist. People referred to, houses, as you see in Oakwood today, as dwellings, and that's how you see them on a map. But until zoning came along, no one thought of those as some sort of exclusive haven for only residential use. Folks ran all kinds of buildings out of or all kinds of businesses out of their homes, rather. Very commonly, dressmakers, music teachers, contractors, artisans, even dry goods sellers and grocers. These were all quite common. And again, they would just have simply been referred to as dwellings. They wouldn't have, referred to a mixed-use district, for example. No one thought of it that way. There was nothing to contrast it with before that time. The historic period for Oakwood in particular is 1880 to, I believe it's 1940. So only there at the end did zoning first come in, and then there was a transition over time from what was an existing sort of casual mixed use to more of a residential monoculture, although, as you can see actually on your screen, there's quite a bit of mixed-use zoning in the area as well. One thing I would like to highlight with the handful of parcels that are in historic Oakwood that are on this list today, none of them have a request to change the number of stories that are permitted. None of them have a request to remove the historic overlay. That means anything done on those sites would require a certificate of appropriateness, and therefore would be appropriate. So what I have heard or seen in the comments is that there is some opposition to any change whatsoever in the zoning that might loosen the uses as somehow a misguided incentive to tear down buildings. I would say that incentive is extremely limited, given the extremely limited change in the zoning proposed today. So I just simply put that in front of you today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in favor of the rezoning application? Okay, well, we'll reserve the remaining time in case we need to come back. And now we'll turn it over for those that are opposed to the rezoning. If you would please approach the podium. Please keep in mind that you have some other folks that would wish to speak, so try to keep your comments in the 2 to 3 minute range.
Good morning. Matthew Brown. Thank you for your service, and thank you for letting me speak. I also live in historic Oakwood, and I have studied the history extensively. Molly is correct. There were a lot of businesses in Oakwood in the historic period, but the people always lived in the houses and ran the businesses out of their homes, including the house that was on the property where she lives. You should have received a letter from the Society of the Preservation of Historic Oakwood opposing the upzoning of the 5 properties in Oakwood. My objection is strongest as to the home at 325 East Edenton Street, which is R10 right now and has been affordable apartments for at least 40 years. We always hear that Raleigh is short of affordable housing, and yet all over downtown we have an excess of empty storefronts and empty offices. And when the city moves into this tower next door, they'll vacate another 100 or so offices around downtown. So why would we want to rezone homes into more vacant storefronts and offices? That is why the city council turned down the upzoning of the adjacent house at 101 North Bloodworth Street, despite the recommendation of this council, except for Commissioner Omakaye. And now I see that they're adding that property back into this. I thought you had to wait 2 years if your rezoning was denied. They're trying again. And the city council denied it by 6-1. The excuse is the bus rapid transit, but people who live in affordable housing ride the bus more often than people who are expected to go to whatever business will come to these houses. There is a house around the corner at 7 Northeast Street that was affordable housing for decades, and it was upzoned a few years ago to OX and is now a hair salon, but nobody rides the bus to get to that. They turned the entire backyard into a parking lot, and we lost our neighbors. Oakwood is very valuable to the city as a neighborhood with people living in the houses. We host over 6,000 people every Halloween from all over the city. Last December, we had 4,000 visitors to our candlelight tour of homes. And just this past weekend, we had 1,000 visitors for the Oakwood Garden Tour. These are all dependent on people living in these houses. The people who have offices don't participate in this sort of thing. So we are an asset to the city. So I hope you will please support us and deny these rezonings in Oakwood, and other folks will speak to the other parts of this upzoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Good morning. I'm Octavia Rainey, and I'm here to speak on 4 things about the Newbern Avenue corridor. Number 1, 1313 Newbern Avenue is Richard B. Harrison Library. I have asked the county, why are they in this upzoning? The county has told me specifically they don't have no plans to upzone Richard B. Harrison Library. No plans. They don't have no money to even make it a 3-story library. So my question is, why is that in the city's request? And they agreed to it, but when I asked them, they said absolutely not. Take it out of the request or have a meeting and tell Wake County to come, because there is some confusion here with what the city's saying and what Wake County is telling me. The second thing, I'm asking that you take the properties on Boyer Street out of this rezoning. It changes the character of the neighborhood 100%. Why would you want to change the character of the neighborhood? It's ridiculous. That's not even fair to the people who bought their homes that live there. They came to Grace AME Zion Church to object to that rezoning. The third thing, I want to talk about Newbern Avenue. I think it's racist of y'all. I really do, to have it that way. For example, on the corner of Newbern Avenue and Raleigh Boulevard, they got a sign up there hanging, Boyer Street and Waldrop Street redevelopment. What's up with that? That's not on Newbern Avenue. That's in College Park. And College Park name is not even on it. What are y'all trying to tell us? What is up with that? That is wrong. When I was vice chair of the Newbern Avenue corridor, I fought for College Park 100%. I even objected when it was brought up on the Newbern Avenue Corridor Alliance. Now, that alliance doesn't exist, but I objected to it because I said, when you start going into College Park, bringing it over into Newbern Avenue, it's just racist. It's racist as it can be. And I want to say this to y'all. Y'all got to stop being racist. Y'all got to look at the facts and not prejudge the facts. And you can't be biased in your decision-making at all at this table. But I object to that, and I am sorry that my neighbors can come out, but they came to Grace AME Zion Church, and they voiced their concern of disapproval, and I disapprove.
Thank you, Ms. Rainey. Any other individuals wish to speak in opposition, please state your name.
Yes, Esther Hall. I'm president of Preservation Raleigh, and I'd just like to point out that Preservation Raleigh does agree with the Society for the Preservation of Historic Oakwood in asking that, in stating that we object to rezoning of the 5 properties in historic Oakwood. We think that retaining their zoning would still allow renovation for the properties to support the city's focus on missing middle housing. Our second concern is an objection to rezoning of 203 South Tarboro Road. And I'm sorry, this is fairly detailed, so forgive me for reading this because I want to get it just right, and I'll try to be quick. In 2020, as part of a study list survey, the state found that the property 203 South Tarboro was within an area determined to be eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places as part of the Lincoln Terrace Historic District. And we feel that had this property been included in the study, it would have been identified as a historic asset. It wasn't considered that way, but had it been, it could have been reasonably assumed to be impacted by BRT funding. So for that reason, we think it would be an unwise decision to rezone this property. Just want to give you a little heads up that it could have been included in the study review if it had been a historic asset, but it wasn't included in that study. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in opposition to the application? If we could stop the timer, please. We'll reserve some of that time in case we need to come back for questions. At this time, I'll bring it back to the table for questions. If we could try to keep this as a question and fact-finding session, we'll open it up for discussion as soon as we're done. Does anybody have any questions for staff? Commissioner Omakai and then Commissioner Sanchez. Commissioner Sanchez, please go ahead.
Okay. This is my first one with multiple lots in one application. Is this an all or nothing thing?
I was going to save this for later, but I'll go ahead with it now. This is a lot, and each case is individual, and we can handle this in many different ways depending on the will of the commission. We can vote it all up or down as a single package, or we could split it out however we wish, move parts of it on, spend more time discussing groups or individual cases as we so desire.
Okay, thank you, because I think that'll put me in the right mindset going forward. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Omakai.
That was one of my questions. My other question is, a couple things were brought up, a couple properties, 2345 New Bern Avenue, 325 Eatonton Street, 1313 New Bern Avenue. I have questions about that because it is a library, and I have also spoken to people before I even knew this was on the docket, and they did say that they're not going to do much with it so I am wondering why that's there. The 203 South Tarboro, and my main question is the North Bloodworth Street. So I know that was one that, like they said, City Council voted down. And is it supposed to be 2 years before it could be brought back?
That used to be in the UDO. That is no longer allowed under state law, so waiting periods are prohibited now. So we cannot wait the 2 years anymore.
Okay. I would just I'll wait for my comments. Those were my questions. Can those be taken out of this proposal? Why is the library in it? I know that some people signed agreements that they want to do this, and they're the property owners. I have some comments at the end I'm trying to fight to not bring up now and just ask my questions. But I'm wondering if those specific properties could be removed. And I also want to know, in an area where we're very familiar that it is low income, things of that nature, why is there no affordability in all of these projects that they're bringing before us?
Okay, thank you very much. Any specific question for staff that you would like feedback on?
I guess this would go to would this go to the staff or would this go to?
I think it depends on who you want to ask.
Everybody can ask.
Let me try to address, first of all, like the library, 203 Tarboro, the property owners did sign, or their representative did sign the applications and returned them to us. Whether they have plans for the property or not, I can't speak to, but they did agree to the rezoning request. So that's why the library is on there. That's why 203 Tarboro is on there. The North Bloodworth one, they applied through the portal, not through through an application we sent out. So they had made that request outside of what we had did through engagement. But as far as like the library, all those applications were signed. So they had the intention to be part of the city-initiated request. As far as an affordability component, these are rezonings only, no determinable projects. The TOD allows for an affordability component that's already, the transportation overlay district. So it's an encouragement for affordability. And by increasing the density entitlement along that corridor, we're trying to entice that kind of sort of development. So we're not proposing developments of these properties. We're proposing to rezone them to add the entitlement and incentivize that type of development in this area that would be highly walkable, access to transit, and makes sense to have a more densified core unit. So we're not proposing a project. We're proposing to amend the zoning to entice projects, if that answered your question.
That answers my question.
Commissioner Sanchez, please go ahead.
How were these properties chosen for the city did they reach out to them and be like, hey, we want to rezone? Like, how was that?
They were part of the original request that the city made several years ago on this corridor. These 81 properties that we reached out to last year again were the ones that Matthew talked about had been reverted back to their original zoning through that state law. It had it went backwards in time about 6 months, and this segment of the rezoning fell into that 6 months. So we had to do an outreach to get property owner consent. But all these were chosen because they are on that New Bern corridor originally. Gotcha. So within the station area plan and densifying that corridor, they were part of that. And these were the property owners who decided to continue that trend after we did the reach out.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Commissioner Walters.
Point of kind of perspective and clarification that I think is important, and I want to get your confirmation on. What you're trying to do here with this kind of batch rezoning is different than a lot of the rezonings that come to us that are from applicants that have a plan to build something specific or within a specific category. This is really a kind of effort to employ a more kind of regional city planning thrust. Is that correct?
Yes.
That just allows people, kind of like you would in a FLUM or through a comp plan process. Is that right?
This is an attempt to target an area for development potential in the future that makes sense around that corridor. I don't want to use the term speculative because we don't have anything in speculation, but that would be like akin to like, a custom built home versus a home someone builds to sell. We're trying to make this area in a planned, for lack of a better terminology, it's a planned area for densification and development for these people to go out, like the property owners or future property owners, to develop into this form that we're looking at with the increased height, the TOD overlay that can increase height based on affordability units that are applied in the area. So there's potential for greater development options in these areas that hit some of those target city goals. Without having a planned project. I don't want to say that all rezonings that come before you do have plans. Sometimes people are just trying to rezone their property without any actual concrete plans, but this would be similar to what you're describing, yes. We don't have projects stated. We are trying to incentivize those projects.
Thank you.
Long way of saying yes.
Yeah.
Any further questions at this time? Commissioner Omakaya, then Commissioner Burnett.
I have one more. Do we happen to know the demographic of the applicants?
I do not. The few that I've spoken with, I believe, range from Middle Eastern through county government. So,
is there any way to find that out?
I'm not sure if I could pinpoint demographics of individual property owners. I don't know if that's something I have the capability or relevancy to do.
No, we don't want to, I don't think we have that data, but also I would be hesitant to call people out based on race.
Yeah, I don't, and like I said, I don't even know of a database I would even pinpoint that from.
Okay, so there's like no place on the application, because a lot of times we can say,
No,
yeah, there's no place.
we don't collect demographic data on applications.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burnett.
My question was the properties, and I assume you've gone through all of them since it is a lot of data. Are any of the properties city owned, or are they all private owners?
All of these properties are not city-owned. There are some, like the county owns a property, but the rest of them are individual property owners. Some of them are businesses, LLCs, things like that.
And, thank you. And for my clarification, you stated that the collection of these parcels was in a previous list, and that the applicants, these were sent in by the property owners. Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah, they were signed by the assigning authority for the property. Like I said, some of them are LLCs, so they would have been assigned by their representative. But yes, the property owners, they received pre-filled out applications with a letter explaining the details of what was going on and requested to rescind applications if they wish to participate.
Do the applicants, when they were sent in, this zoning that is being proposed, was that proposed by them or by the staff?
The city proposed what was originally approved.
Right, so the request that's in front of you today is exactly what was in front of the Planning Commission and City Council in 2022.
Okay.
And all of those proposed districts are an implementation of the future land use map and urban form map as amended by the New Bern Station Area Planning Plan that was completed also in 2020.
So they were signed under the information as of 2022. Got it. Thank you.
All of these properties have been zoned these districts before and were unzoned by a state regulation. So this is.
Please keep comments from the audience to the podium.
Yeah, so what's in the city petition was previously, all those districts were previously applied by City Council in 2022. And so the question in front of you today is, would you support reapplying what City Council did in 2022? With the exception of this new request from the case that was recently denied. That's not currently part of the city-initiated request. It's just part of the public comment associated with that request.
Commissioner Wakai?
Yeah, just so I have a point of clarity, because from the audience, it seems like they have a dispute to the question of the statement of all of these properties were in the original ones. So I would like to know which ones were not.
On your screen, the difference here is we're speaking to the application about the ones that were previously in. There were additional requests from the property owners through the engagement portal after the application was submitted for the city review. The 101 North Bloodworth Street is, as you can see on this part of the previous request column, is the only one that was not part of the original request.
Can I ask staff another question, just really quick?
Please follow
I'm
up.
sorry,
Go ahead.
because it's a whole
No,
lot.
use these. We got to get our questions answered. Please go ahead.
I saw you all say that it was passed and then by state law it was rescinded. Why did they rescind it in the state law what city council had passed originally?
So I just want to make one thing clear. The state law was not targeting the city of Raleigh. There was a downzoning statute that was passed that addressed zoning regulations throughout the state of North Carolina. When staff went back to review what recent ordinances may have been impacted by that new state law, this was identified as one of those that was impacted. So I just want to make it clear, like the General Assembly was not saying, City of Raleigh, you did something wrong with adopting this rezoning ordinance, just be only City of Raleigh. This was a statewide thing. So what you're allowed to do to not be in violation of that state law is if the individual property owners come in and they consent to the rezoning request. So that's what you're seeing in front of you today. These owners have come forward and said, we would like that rezoning applied to our property, and we're consenting to it, so that we're not running afoul of that state statute.
And that's just affecting like 20-something properties if we add the additional, not all 81.
That's correct. Under the state law now, the owners would have to consent to be part of the rezoning process. So the ones that you see in front of you today are the ones that have consented. It's not the full 81, with the exception of that 101 North.
1225 East Edenton Street. That's the one who withdrew last week.
Commissioner Cochran.
Regarding the option to break these apart or to vote as one, how many votes can we have today? Are we only allowed one vote per session regarding a case, or could we have a series?
We can do it however we wish.
Okay.
To that point, yes, you can chop this up however you would like today. Just note that the UDO does say it's one bite at the apple with respect to, this is a general use case, but that one bite at the apple applies to changing zoning boundaries. So if you want to separate out some to discuss again next meeting and maybe vote some forward, you can do that, but you're only going to be able to do that once, according to the UDO.
So we can only divide it up once. If it took us a few sessions to make through all those groups of voting on it, that would be okay. Right? Like
Yes.
here's 3 groups and we vote on one today and one next time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Just to, you would just be able to divide them up one time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Commissioner O'Haver.
Thank you. Generally, I mean, I'm in favor of this. They're homeowners who are, I have a question. Oh, I'm getting to the question. Yeah, you're good. Sorry.
I know, right?
Still open. Questions coming. I'll try to be brief. But as far as the process goes, it is, I mean, so I can't read your Reflect in Raleigh sticker, Bynum. When is the next?
2050.
2050. When are we looking at that comp plan? I mean, we're in the process of that now?
That's right. We're about halfway through.
Okay. So I remember when we did this, and it was a lot. I feel like we took this to Cal, and we had many meetings in Cal about this, like weeks. And so here we are 4 years later. And again, generally, I feel like we voted for it then. I'm comfortable with it because the homeowners have agreed on their own will to apply back for it. But I just don't remember in the 5 years I've sat on the commission, other than when we zoned this entire corridor and how much time it took, that we're looking at all these different properties. And it just seems like a lot to me to be able to absorb right now, reading through the staff report, hearing comments, and being able to vote for all of these at one time. So I guess my question is there an opportunity to take this to Cal? I'm getting ready to roll off, so sorry for anybody who's going to have to go through this in Cal, but it just seems to me like this is a lot. So I'd like to understand how it came forward with 18 properties and how we're really supposed to absorb all these, identifying it was already zoned. The property owners are coming back, but that was 4 or 5 years ago. We're re-looking at the comp plan, and it's not as uniform as what we did in Cal. Now it's 18 separate pieces. So there's a question in there somewhere.
If you would like to refer, if the commission would like to refer this to Cal for discussion, that certainly is an option that is open to you. That's a decision for the commission to make.
If we can avoid it, I would prefer to avoid going to the Cal just because it only meets monthly and it would significantly slow us down. But if that's what we need, that is definitely a tool available for us. Commissioner Walters, do you have your hand up? Oh, Commissioner Burnett, sorry.
I think for clarity, we need to address what Cal is, because you got a lot of people that are like, "What is that?" And I'm one of them. Thank you.
All right, so yeah, the committee of the whole we are all members of the committee of the whole, and it meets on special cases or for things that need extra discussion once a month. We haven't had one in a while. Commissioner Mackay.
Is there an opportunity for us to have special meetings?
Yes, indeed there is. They're exceedingly difficult to schedule.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I agree with Commissioner O'Haver that this is a lot to digest in one meeting, and there are some properties I do have concerns about that I wouldn't want to lump all into the vote today. Plus, I would want to kind of understand for myself to make an informed decision, a little more of the history around this. So I'm wondering how that could shake out if we can break this into whatever, and the ones that we really have questions about, do take it to Cal for one meeting for the harder ones and chop up the other ones for the next couple meetings.
Okay. How comfortable would the commissioners be with treating this like a consent agenda? Look at the list, and we can each call out properties we would like to pull out individually. Whatever's left, we can vote on today and move it on, and the others can be handled as individual cases, depending, unless we have 12 individual ones that get pulled out. Could we perhaps just go down the line and say what properties you might like to consider individually? If we're not prepared at this time to make that declaration or decision, I would suggest that we defer to the next meeting and keep this open. Commissioner Sanchez, and then Commissioner
I just had a
O'Haver.
quick comment. Speaking of the cow, I know that we have one the 24th of this month, which is before our next meeting on the 28th. So technically, we would have time to look at these right before our next meeting here, right? Or no?
I think that would work with our schedule. We would have to confirm that we would be able to meet quorum. Did we make an announcement about this month's cow at the last meeting?
We would very much like to have an April Committee of the Whole meeting.
I think we already had one scheduled.
We had worked with members to confirm a quorum. As I understand it, there were only 6 folks available.
Okay.
So we have a very tight quorum for the April Committee of the Whole meeting.
So the Committee of the Whole meetings are not as long either. So if possible, I would like to keep this out of the cow, but I think it would probably come on our May agenda if we moved it to the Committee of the Whole. Unless there's further questions for staff at this time or the public, I'd like to go ahead and close the public hearing for now. We'll just keep it at the table for discussion and comments for now. Any further comments?
If we could, Chair Otwell, keep the public hearing open just because you're bringing it back in May.
Oh, okay.
And there may be additional information presented that you want the ability to ask questions.
I appreciate the advice. So we'll keep the public hearing open at this time, but we'll keep the discussion at the table if we could. Commissioner O'Haver.
Yeah, sorry if I threw a wrench in there with mentioning cow. I just want to clarify, I'm not as concerned about the specific property owners. These are property owners that are coming forward saying we want to be part of the rezoning. My only concern, and maybe it's a minor one, is I feel like initially when we spent a lot of time at this, we were looking at comprehensively the entire corridor with dozens of properties. Now, just looking at this map, I feel like what we're trying to do is just kind of come back and plop those in. And so my only concern is just kind of understanding what the impacts of this is comprehensively to what we're trying to achieve within the corridor. I'm not as interested in going down the line saying, I want to pull this property out, I want to pull that property out. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Commissioner Omakai.
Okay, so this is close and personal to me. For those that don't know, I'm the former chair of the Transit Authority. I served for 8 years. I was the chair for the last 6. I was on the Transit Authority when the bus rapid transit system started coming past our desk. The 2020, so I just want to make a couple points. The 2016 vote that was on the ballot actually had a law passed the following year saying that you cannot have ambiguously languaged measures on the ballot because the 2016 ballot just said who wants enhanced public transportation. And nobody's going to vote against that. But what we found with the BRT, we can't find anybody to build it, so we're developing around it. My main concern with the BRT has always been the policies that come with it and how that's going to impact the New Bern Avenue corridor and how our #1 ridership currently still resides there because people who are low income, people who are looking for housing affordability live close to public transportation and not necessarily transients that move into Raleigh. We saw a lot of negative policy change, like where developers could sue whole communities to break the covenant of their homes because they wanted to build something that wasn't in the covenant of the home, and that's something we saw a couple years ago. We have seen a lot of push out of New Bern Avenue. One of the concerns that I had originally was the fact that, yes, there's a lot of car-centric businesses, but they're owned by people who live in the area, the car wash, the gas stations, the oil change places, and in the face of that changing to coffee shops and yoga bars and nail salons, will change the demographic, the historic demographic of the New Bern Avenue corridor. Also, I am on the DMV committee project working group to reimagine what the DMV site is going to be, and we want transit there, we want housing and mixed use there, but we were just told in a market study that mixed use and residential is unfeasible on New Bern Avenue. So I'm curious about how we were told that in the DMV project working group, but then here we're looking to rezone things that fall right into the space of where the consultant said is unfeasible on New Bern Avenue. So those two things don't seem to sit well with me. Either one is true or the other is true. I know that we can't force anybody to put affordability on a corridor. My concern is things radiate out. And I know words like gentrification are dirty words that people don't want to hear, but it's a fact. And we know that it doesn't stay on one street. It will radiate out to the other streets, which is why you see a large shift in who lives up New Bern Avenue. So I think that while we make these decisions, some of them, if the property owner said that they want to do it, some of them, I'm concerned about the North Bloodworth one because city council said no, and then now it feels like they're trying to sneak it back in. It's this particular thing will require a lot of thought, but I hope that we're thinking past. I know we got to focus on the comprehensive plan and the future land use map, but they may not be positively impacting the people that live in this area if that's all we're looking at. So I do think that this requires more conversation past just zoning and what the true implications or the true outcomes in the next 10, 20 years in this corridor might be because of this.
Thank you. Commissioner Walters?
As I'm considering this, I'm trying to keep a good perspective on what's in front of us. And as far as I understand it, the city has a planning department full of really smart, well-meaning professionals that have committed their profession and a lot of their time and effort to understanding how to create great cities, livable cities. And as I understand the original intent of the zoning change here, it is a kind of effort to create a good livable corridor that is equitable and meets the things that were in our comp plan and are probably going to be in our future comp plan. I feel like we're kind of in this in the weeds moment here where the city planning department and the public represented by the city made an effort to create a great space and an equitable space in this area and got gummed up in the process. And now we have in front of us almost better than just what they did originally, which was applying to folks, whether they liked it or not. We have people saying, yes, we wanted to be a part of that. And so I just think it's important to have the perspective there that this is the city trying to implement something, a planning and policy change that is important to make a good city equitable for everyone. And that this is not a normal rezoning, series of rezonings, that it's different than what is brought to us in many ways. And I want to have that perspective. And I would generally say that having property owners that are saying they want to be a part of something that we already approved feels good to me. And I'm nervous about diving way down in the weeds with the power that we have.
Thank you, Commissioner Walters. Commissioner Sanchez?
As you guys know, but you guys in the public may not know, I also serve on the Raleigh Historic District Commission. And speaking for myself, if we had to vote today on like an all or nothing, I would vote no, especially for the 7 properties that are in the Historic Overlay District of Oakwood. I also just want to say I wasn't here when they voted to approve that in the past. Like, I'm new, so these are all new situations to me, and I personally don't feel comfortable like blindly approving the rezoning with no like intention or plan on how these individual properties plan to move forward. And I feel like if they would like to, you know, come to get rezoned, I would feel comfortable if they came on an individual basis to get approved with a plan or, you know, something to show for what they want to do. Yep, that's it.
Seems like the conversation is slowing down a little bit. One more comment, Commissioner Cochran.
Thank you. So I do want to make note that I'm not asking to be recused, but I do live close by these properties, close enough that I got the notice for the first public hearing, or one of the public hearings back in November, which I attended. It was a big benefit to hear a bigger conversation around this and really have time to listen to all the questions being asked to fully understand the scope here. And I do support this, and I would vote yes today if we only had one vote. But I also recognize that there are specific areas that even if we say yes to all of them, we just want to know we're saying yes to the right thing. And so I would support breaking out a few of these as well.
So could we get a feeling from the commission, if you were able to remove your problem properties from the list, would you be willing to move this on today? Or do you need more time to consider what you have issues with?
I would personally like more time to consider.
All right. Commissioner O'Haver?
It looks like you're trying to, we're sort of at an impasse here, trying to figure out what we're going to do, so I'll give you my opinion. I'm comfortable doing what the will of the commission is. I do have some concerns. I appreciate Commissioner Cochran's comments, and my fellow commissioner here, I think, put it well. So I'm comfortable going either way. I don't want to gum it up, to use his terms, Commissioner Walters. So I'm comfortable going either way. If majority of the folks here are ready to move this forward, I can get behind it. Understanding there's some concerns, if the will of the commission is to pull them out, I'll vote that way as well.
And as I mentioned before, you do have the ability to divide these up, as your chair has indicated. So, I mean, one option could be, I know there's more discussion maybe around the historic district properties and that Bloodworth property. If you wanted to possibly have those discussed more fully at COW, and if the others, that would be a possible, just hearing comments today, that could be a possibility.
So just for clarity, we could potentially, I guess, make a motion to isolate the, I guess, historic district properties for further discussion at Cal. And then I suppose we would, approve or deny that motion. And then we could have a separate motion to approve or deny the sort of larger rezoning for the remaining properties. Okay. Well, I would just acknowledge that I would feel comfortable moving forward in that fashion.
Commissioner Cochran, it looked like you had a comment ready.
So even if we remove the historic properties, can we still remove a few more today?
As long as we do it today,
Okay.
we can split it up however we want.
That's the clarity.
Or one time. We get one shot, maybe not today.
Right. You also have time, if you would like, to reflect on the material further and come back at the next meeting. If, my general feeling from listening to your comments is that you need a little bit more time with the staff report to digest. And so if you wanted to come back at the next meeting, just defer to continue your discussion to the next meeting. That is an option that's available to you.
That's what I would like to do.
I love that.
I'm not
I'm
comfortable.
really pressured and panicked, and I'm just like, deep breath, it's okay. Yeah.
So
Is it possible we can defer this to the next meeting, but just dig a little deeper since we have a COW scheduled already?
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Second.
I'm sorry, are you asking that this appear on the COW agenda? Is that on the committee of the whole agenda?
Yeah.
Is that your
Oh, no,
request?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
possible?
Yeah, I misunderstood that. Yeah.
Or no, just wait until the next meeting.
I thought
and
you
then
meant
dig
come to the
deeper,
next
and that
regular
gives us
meeting
more
and dig
time to
deeper.
digest.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, so do we need a motion for that, or can I just defer? Yeah, without,
Just defer it.
Without objection, we will defer this case and keep it open until the next meeting.
Thank you. And if I can make one request of Hiram, can we make sure, I didn't have the list of the additional properties that were being requested to join the rezoning. I just want to make sure the commissioners had that in their packet. It's just in the presentation? Okay. All right, thank you. I just want to make sure everyone was clear on the ones coming in.
That was a good, healthy, spirited conversation. I enjoyed that.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for your input and your passion. And but at this time, I'm going to call a 5-minute break real quick. Give us all a second to breathe, if y'all would. So
Okay.
let's be back here at 10:45, please.
When are you rolling up?
Bringing to order the April 14th meeting of the Planning Commission. Continuing with new business down the agenda, next up is TCZ 0226, a text change to zoning conditions at Creedmoor Road and Glenwood Avenue. And we will hear a presentation from staff, and we'll turn that over now. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mitra Sheshbradharan presenting on TCZ 226. This is a text change to zoning conditions at 4601 Creedmoor Road, located at the intersection of Glenwood Avenue and Creedmoor Road. Amending conditions just under 5 acres. The site is currently zoned commercial mixed use up to 3 stories with the parking limited frontage and conditions. Your deadline for action is June 13th. Zoning in the area is commercial and residential. Here's a look at the site and the surrounding uses currently. Immediately abutting the western boundary of the site is the Brookhaven subdivision and NCOD, consisting of single-family detached homes in an R4 district. Moving further north, Creedmoor and the northeast of the site are a variety of low and moderate density residential developments featuring single-family detached homes, townhomes, and some smaller apartment buildings. Immediately east of the site across Creedmoor are mixed-use zoning districts featuring the Crabtree Marriott, as well as a variety of medical offices and other commercial uses. And then immediately south of the site across Glenwood is the Crabtree Mall. And then also mapped here is the Crabtree Creek Trail as well. Here's another look at the site, a little bit more zoomed in. As you can see on the site today are 2 existing structures, both having, or between the 2, 4 commercial tenants. I think most notably the Container Store, 2 men's clothing stores, and then also a shoe store on the out parcel further towards Creedmoor or Glenwood Ave. And then I'll note the Brookhaven subdivision, again, immediately abutting the site because there are some conditions that relate to buffering the property from those adjacent parcels. Here are a few looks at the site and its frontages. The first shows kind of the intersection of Glenwood Ave and Creedmoor as if you're leaving the mall. Again, you can see the 4 existing commercial tenants on the site today and between the 2 structures. And then both of the images with the label 2 on them show the site itself and the existing structures. And then back to the first image, you can get a look at the existing pedestrian facilities along these portions of Glenwood Ave and Creedmoor Road, as well as the pedestrian crossings that provide access between the mall and then other surrounding uses. There are a number of lengthy conditions that exist on the site today and that are also being proposed. This is like a high-level summary. The application or the staff report has the detailed black line version with additional context. But to walk through what's being changed here, the first condition on the site as existing outlined specific retail uses that can be permitted on the site, and they're in reference to what exists in the former UDO or the old code. So the first condition in the proposed request is referencing the current commercial mixed-use zoning district and only prohibiting certain commercial uses and as well as all residential, and that's maintained from the existing zoning as well. The second condition is maintaining the cap of 45,000 square feet for any development on the site. Again, that's in the existing and that's being maintained to the proposed. And then conditions D through F that are a subset of condition 1 in the existing speak to driveway access and from Glenwood and Creedmoor and where they should be located on the site. Those have been removed in response to staff comments and because they're NCDOT maintained roads. Condition 3, no major changes here. Building height will still be capped at 35 feet with an exception of up to 42 feet measured with the grade. What's removed here is calculations for how that could be measured, but measurements are reflected in the UDO today. Condition 4, no changes, still the same requirements for tree plantings and parking areas. Condition 5, no major changes here, still the provisions for limiting lighting impacts to nearby residential uses, again, referencing specifically the 3 parcels that abut the site in the Brookhaven subdivision. What's been updated here are the deed book references and Wake County pins, and that's pretty consistent throughout some of these revisions. So no real changes to the buffering, just updates to the pins that the conditions are referencing. And then condition 6, changes here just to the loading and service, location, and hours of operation. No major changes, just removing the hours of operation for when pickup and delivery services can happen on the site, but the other major parts of the condition have remained the same. All right. Condition 7 is providing a transitional landscape protective yard along the western boundary of the site, again in reference to the 3 residential parcels that immediately abut the site. This is being maintained. At its slimmest, it's a 40-foot buffer, and then at its max, it can go up to a 98-foot buffer. That exists on the site today, and that's being maintained. Only difference here is just updating the Wake County pins and deed book references to reflect what exists today for those parcels. No changes to 8 and 9 in relation to buffering mechanical equipment on the site, and then also limiting retail facilities to 1 occupied level and a mezzanine space. Condition 10, some updates to hours of operation for when the public can access the buildings. The former conditions made a distinction between retail and non-retail hours of operation. Specifically, non-retail was not permitted to be open on Sundays. Now the blanket hours of operation are 5 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Sunday. And then no changes to requirements for sign placement and visibility from residential uses. And then no major changes to also the limitations on outdoor sound amplification. And then final two conditions. Condition 13 was updated to remove references to the exterior of the building matching the nearby Crabtree Valley Mall. However, there are still pretty extensive requirements for what the exterior of the building can be comprised of. And then condition 14 was updated for clarity and future enforceability, but would still remain that the nearby western boundary parcels could still request the inclusion of a chain link fence in that protective yard prior to certificate of occupancy. This would be related to any new development on the site, which would be maintained by the petitioners. Right. Looking at entitlement here, the headline is no major changes to the zoning district, also no major changes to entitlement. Residential was not permitted in the existing zoning conditions, and that's being maintained, so no changes there. The build to requirements are staying the same because they are maintaining the parking limited frontage. And that's the same for commercial entitlement. Existing conditions have a 45,000 square foot cap on development, and that's being maintained as well. In terms of transportation energy analysis, there's no reported walk score for the site, but as I noted prior, there are existing pedestrian facilities in this area along Glenwood and Creedmoor, and then there are also some planned road widening and pedestrian projects that would probably, or most likely, improve connection to the site. Overall, the site has a higher transit score and is more bikeable. Residents in this area are less transportation burdened, and they also have a better access to jobs. The site is immediately served by two Go Raleigh routes, Route 6 and Route 36L, within immediate walking distance of the site. I'll also note that across the street or across Glenwood at Crabtree Mall, there are a variety of Go Raleigh routes that serve this location. In terms of housing analysis, there's no change to the housing supply. Residential will not be permitted in the proposed conditions. In terms of demographics for the residents that live in this area, they're less likely to be people of color and lower income. And there's a higher percentage of individuals 65 years and older. And then rent in this area has risen slightly higher than the citywide average. Overall, the request is consistent with the future land use map designation of community mixed use for the site and the area. A variety of urban form map guidance here. The site is in a frequent transit area, a city growth center, and it fronts a urban thoroughfare as well. These recommend frontage guidance ranging from urban to hybrid. Maintaining the parking limited frontage is consistent with this urban form map guidance. The request is also consistent with the comprehensive plan overall. A variety of consistent policies here that speak to future land use map consistency, reducing vehicle miles traveled by encouraging mixed use development, as well as policies that support providing density and buffering between residential and commercial development, and concentrating regional retail in certain parts of the city rather than sprawling throughout the city. Inconsistent policies identified here are LU 2.6 and CS 4.4 that relate specifically to fire service response time standards. And then LU 10.5 speaks specifically to not supporting commercial uses or higher intensity commercial uses next to areas of low scale residential on the future land use map. However, I'll note entitlement is not changing with this request. Also, there are pretty intense buffering requirements between the commercial activity on the site and any nearby residential that are being maintained. No outstanding issues. Your deadline for action is June 13th. I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant is also here.
Thank you, Ms. Sheshparadaran. For the record, the public hearing opened when the staff presentation began. So now I'd like to provide time for those in favor of the application. Please come forward. You'll have 10 minutes to speak. State your name for the record.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Colin McGrath. I'm an attorney with Pointer Spruill here in Raleigh, and I'm here on behalf of SDC Glenwood Place, which is the owner of 4601 Creedmoor Road. As Mitra has done throughout this process, she has made this part really easy with her thorough coverage of the request, staff's view of consistency, I want to respect everyone's time, not duplicate any of that. I do want to give you a little bit of color on what's driving the request and the timing of the request. Walk through a couple of the categories of changes to the conditions that we've made. And as we did at the neighborhood meeting, be very clear about what we are not proposing. So a lot of you will probably remember this as the Circuit City site, right there across from the mall. The conditions we're looking at today that exist on the ground were adopted in 2011. The substance of those really goes back to a 1996 set of conditions that allowed the build out of this parcel. We know that a lot has changed in the area since 1996. A lot has changed about the way people shop since 1996, and you know, we have an entirely new zoning ordinance. But really the first two of those are what is driving the request. As originally conditioned, this parcel essentially functions as an out parcel of Crabtree Valley Mall. The retail uses you see in the existing conditions are limited to the kind of retail that you would find in a shopping mall. The hours generally track a shopping mall. With the build out of the area, you know, we have more hotels than we did in 96. We have more office than we had in 96. And particularly up the hill from the mall, we have a lot more residential. SDC Glenwood is really looking towards the future and trying to make sure that this site continues to attract top tenants in a way that serves the broader community and not just as an out parcel of the mall. So if you look at the existing conditions and what's allowed, there are, in our mind, a couple of pretty glaring omissions. Things like health clubs, gyms, grocery stores are not permitted on the site. Things that would kind of amenitize the whole area rather than accessorize the mall are prohibited. So that use change is the primary driver here. Now, with some of those other uses, you know, a grocery store that's open, you know, 8 to 8, for example, isn't a very useful grocery store. So the hours of operation, we've proposed to open those up a little bit to accommodate some of those uses that we believe the site is attractive to the broader community to put there. Now, despite all that, I do want to be clear, there are no plans to redevelop the physical site. The tenants that are there are still there. I think we're still years away from the next available non-renewal option. So this is really looking to be proactive with the zoning conditions for when the time comes, be in a position to attract that top tenant. Those were the initial conditions that we proposed, that we talked to the neighbors about, and are kind of the first category of those conditions. Again, as Mitra noted, you know, these are all uses that CX would allow, consistency with a comp plan, future land use map. This is where all of that future land use guidance suggests those type of uses could and should be. But as often happens when you get into conditions that are 30 years old, there was a lot of other stuff that just needed to be cleaned up while we were in there. So working with staff, mostly staff helped identify things where the adoption of the UDO has caught up to practice in the pre-UDO world, and conditions that required, for example, cross-access are now just duplicative of what the code requires. And so we've removed those conditions. We're not removing the requirement. It's just now that those requirements live somewhere else. There is a similar approach. There are conditions, if you look at the black line in the agenda materials, there are conditions regarding access to the site. Now that the site is built and we've seen, you know, adjacent properties developed, one of the things we heard from transportation staff is, you know, we're not going to create a potential conflict with DOT. You know, access to the site is DOT controlled. That is a busy intersection. You know, in that type of place, you kind of get your driveway where DOT tells you can get your driveway. So there's some conditions were removed or modified for that reason. There are some other relatively minor clarifying changes. I think at one point in time there was a recombination of the parcels to the west, so that explains a little bit of difference in the reference to adjoining parcel numbers. Mitra mentioned the buffer, the comprehensive buffer. The existing conditions actually use a pretty cool phrase. They call it a super buffer. You know, when we have approached this, we have tried to be surgical with these condition changes. We want to cover the bare minimum of what we need and leave everything else intact. Adjoining Brookhaven, frankly, is a tremendous opportunity for this site. But we know, you know, things like conditions and sound, noise level requirements, all of those things were sort of carefully negotiated and basically define the relationship between this site and that low density neighborhood. We are keeping all of that intact. The super buffer will remain. Prohibitions on intense uses on the site will remain. You know, one of those is residential uses. That is a condition that has existed on the site for 30 years. You know, again, it's one that we view as kind of defining the relationship with the neighbors, and so we've proposed to keep that condition as well as some others. Where I think that leaves us is with something that ensures that the property will be marketable when the time comes. We'll continue to attract tenants and occupants that bring an advantage to the community. And it has the added benefit of cleaning up some older language that looks a little bit different than the code. So both for the property owner, and I don't want to speak for them, but I imagine it makes it easier for staff and enforceability to have conditions in your ordinance speaking the same language. We did hold a neighborhood meeting. We had 3 folks attend, a married couple from Brookhaven, and then a gentleman from a business just to the north. North of this site is also zone CX3, parking limited conditional use. We didn't hear any substantive concerns once we kind of explained what the goal here was and what was actually being requested. So happy to answer any questions. Again, appreciate staff's help. This has been a pretty dense undertaking, but we'd ask that the commission recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Mr. McGrath. Go ahead and pause the timer and we'll reserve your time if it's needed. Thank you very much. We now have 10 minutes for those that are opposed to the application. All right. Seeing none, we will bring it back to the table for questions. Does any of the commissioners have questions for staff or applicant? Commissioner Walters.
I actually just want to see if we could pull up those. I don't have my laptop. Can we go back to the conditions real quick?
Yeah, I'll also note, apologies for not mentioning it before, these reflect the final signed conditions. What is in the agenda materials were the unsigned conditions, so some minor changes, again, in response to staff comments.
Okay. Well, while you're up there, could I ask a question about, this is mostly for my interest, condition number 7.
Sure.
Oh, 6 or 5. There's so many of them. 4. Is that different than what the UDO would ask for now anyway?
The tree planting condition, I'd have to check on that. I'm not sure the exact requirements. This speaks specifically to like the circumference of trees that are planted in the parking area. I'm not sure if the UDO would have anything to say about that specifically.
Thank you.
Commissioner Amakai.
I have 2 questions. Are there any specific businesses that you all are looking to prohibit on the site?
Commissioner, there are uses that would remain prohibited. They're now in what is condition 1, include residential uses, cemetery, telecommunications tower, adult establishment, outdoor recreation, short-term rental, passenger terminal, bar, nightclub, tavern, lounge, as well as some vehicle-related uses, and obviously no detention center or jail. But basically what we've done is we've taken the uses that would be allowed in CX, and I realize I probably should have noted this. The prior conditions tell you what you could do. We have inverted that condition to something the city uses a little more often now, and says we're going to take the uses allowed in CX and tell you what you can't do. So it floats a little bit better as the ordinance changes. But this would still allow retail. It would allow the type of personal service like health clubs, but the more intense uses that CX, a general CX rezoning would allow would be prohibited, like the ones I just listed.
And is there a reason why you all don't want residential on the site?
So there are a couple, and I think it's less that we don't want residential, and from our standpoint, it's more that that's not part of the plan. The first thing I'll note is, residential has been prohibited since '96. It's tough to find all of the minutes and that kind of thing from back then, but it sounds like the prospect of residential use was part of that. How does this site work with the adjoining neighborhood? So we've proposed to carry that forward. There is no plan to redevelop the site, period, and certainly no plan to redevelopment with residential. As a practical matter, using this site, I mean, Glenwood and Creedmoor is a very busy intersection. This, in the grand scheme, is not a very large parcel. Residential development there, I'm sure someone could build a good product there. But there are a lot of practical limitations, and frankly, any residential development would be inconsistent with this super buffer. And so, frankly, for us, it was kind of a, do we retain all the buffering and the uses that has made this site work well with the neighborhood for 30 years, or do we take a flyer on something we've got no plan to do? So, if someone down the road puts residential, it would require a sea change as far as the conditions go, so it would have to come back regardless at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions from the commission? Commissioner O'Haver.
Similar to Commissioner Walters, the only thing that jumped out at me, and speaking of DOT, and it's a question for staff, I'm asking a question.
Nice.
Condition A3 on the location of the Glenwood Avenue is very specific. And again, I don't know that it would be an issue, but I just don't want to put a condition in there that you can't meet due to DOT requirements. So I was just curious about that one specific.
Is it in reference to, does it begin the eastern edge of pavement?
Right, 160 feet west of the intersection, 60 feet from the, 40 feet from the corner.
That has been removed in the signed conditions. Again, this reflects unsigned
Sorry,
stuff, so it has
okay.
been removed in response to staff comments.
Oh, that little strike on the F means that it's struck from the...
It was not in the unsigned conditions, which is what's in the
Okay,
packet.
I'm
but
sorry,
now
you
it
said
is.
maybe
Yep, no worries.
Okay.
Okay, one more.
One more question from Commissioner
I'm
Omakaya.
done, I promise. So why are we removing the calculations of measurement? I think they were saying that they were changing the removing how they calculate the measurement of the building.
Yeah.
Why were we doing that?
So building height measurement in relation to like grading and slope on the site is defined in the UDO. So it does not need to exist in the conditions because we already have requirements that spell it out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If there are no more questions, we'll bring it back to the table for discussion, if there's any comments or discussion. And if there are no comments or discussion to be had, I would invite a motion. Commissioner O'Haver.
I move to recommend adoption of the proposed consistency statement dated April 14, 2026, containing the agenda materials, and to recommend approval of zoning amendment TCZ 0226.
Second. I think that we're going to, who was that from down at that end of the table? That was fast. Was that? Was that Commissioner Omakai or Commissioner Sanchez down there? I didn't catch both of them. It was you, Omakai. We have a motion from Commissioner O'Haver and seconded by Commissioner Omakai. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And recommend approval unanimously. All right, moving down the agenda, we have our next application. This will be our last application for the day. It's Z4425 Jones Ridge Trail. And we'll start off with a presentation from staff.
All right.
This opens the public hearing.
Good morning, Chair and Commission. My name is Jacob Hunt, Planning and Development. As you said before you today is Z4425. This is an assemblage of properties running along Jones Ridge Trail. The request is to rezone approximately all 27 acres from R30, which is a Wake County zoning designation, to R10 with conditional uses. Your deadline for action is June 30th. The zoning in the area is predominantly still Wake County. This site is located in northeast Raleigh along the Rollsville town border and our annexation border. So zoning out there is still predominantly Wake County 30. The closest R10 zoning is part of the Forestville Station development, which is immediately adjacent to this. That was also rezoned to R10 CU in 2004. This is an overview of the site. As you can see, it is adjacent to that ongoing development to the west. The first view is from Lily Lyles Road, which is the access point for the site, and then the second one is from the new Forestville Station development. This application does include a number of conditions, the first being a total limit of no more than 190 units, and then there are some following conditions that regulate the number of units when those change at site plan, depending on whether they would be apartments, townhomes, or detached homes. And there's just a few different levels where whatever that mix is determines how many maximum units they can build. I can let you know that was based off of traffic impacts and essentially equalizing traffic impacts to that 190 total. So there's higher impacts with detached units, lower impacts with attached units. The second point is that the apartment building type is prohibited when that includes horizontal party walls. So essentially saying you won't have what is typically considered an apartment building in this development. There could still be a world in which there is more like what you would see as a townhome development, but might technically be an apartment. No residential building may contain more than 6 units, and at least 30% of the net site area must be designated as open space. There are a number of conditions that relate to the northern and southern boundaries with those existing properties. The north must be set back at least 20 feet from a number of properties on that northern edge, and same for the southern. There's a number 6 that's talking about discharge into a northeast pond where some of the stormwater flow may go, and requiring increased stormwater protections for that pond. Again, the final 2 conditions relate to fencing that will be installed along those northern and southern property lines where there are adjacent neighbors. The increase in units currently under the zoning with Wake County, 25 units can be built. Again, as I said, 190 would be the maximum for this site. Setbacks are generally reduced except for those areas where they've proposed a 20-foot setback. This site does have a lower walk score than average, a lower bike score. Transportation costs are about average, and a lower job proximity than average due to its location. There's no transit within walking distance of this site. This application would add to the housing supply, does not include any subsidized unit conditions, would permit a variety of housing types with smaller units and smaller lots, and again, not within walking distance of a transit station or stop. Area residents are less likely to be racial minorities than the city average and less likely to be low income than the city average. The request today of R10 CU is inconsistent with the future land use map, which designates this area low-scale residential. The total unit count condition and the prohibition against stacked apartments does bring that into closer compliance with that future land use designation, but it is still inconsistent. There's no urban form designation for the site. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan, again, inconsistent with the future land use map. Those consistent policies speak to increased housing, quality buffers, and buildings at a scale that match the surrounding developments. Inconsistent policies include those zoning consistencies for new land coming into the city, aligning with the future land use map, and some infrastructure impacts around fire response time standards. Approval of this would amend the future land use map from low-scale residential to moderate-scale residential. And you can see what that approval would look like. Again, deadline for action is June 13th, and there are no outstanding issues with this request. The applicant is here to speak if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. We will now have 10 minutes for the applicant and those in favor.
Great. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of Planning Commission. Michael Birch with Longleaf Law Partners here on behalf of the applicant. I want to thank Jacob for working with us and getting to this point, working with us through conditions, and thank you for your presentation. As he mentioned, we are seeking to rezone to R10 with conditions to permit single-family detached, attached townhome units at a density comparable and compatible with all of our surrounding uses, particularly those to the west and to the south. We have 4-story apartments being constructed here to the south, and again, significant townhome development here. And I do want to note in this area, excuse me, not that area, further to the south in this corner here, there is a Sheetz already at the hard corner, and there are a number of additional parcels that will be developed for retail and office uses. So again, our conditions that Jacob went through, they reflect our work with staff to address some of the comprehensive plan policies. They also reflect our work with our neighbors to the north and the south. So want to address kind of two buckets or the two items of inconsistency. One mentioned fire response, two on the future land use map consistency. First on fire response. So this site if annexed, would be served by Station 28. That is the same station that serves all that area to the west of us. That was, just to note, this area to the west, Forestville Station, that was rezoned in April of 2021. Again, we have 4-story apartments down here in the southern region, and again, townhomes and commercial. The city recently had their fire response master plan. This site is not included within that northeast special study area that they kind of identified as an area of focus for the future. This site is not within that area. But the fire master plan does say, even for that special study area, that essentially Fire Station 28 would serve, as well as the Wake New Hope Station 2 through a mutual aid agreement. So the city has plans to serve this area. I'll also note, again, we have that fire master plan then kind of led to and informed the council's adoption of kind of really a growth boundary through their planned annexation areas. So this property is within and identified as that assemblage to be annexed. So it's not outside that growth boundary established by council recently. It was, again, expressly included as something that should be annexed and served by city facilities and utilities. Right. We worked early on with public utilities to ensure that there is adequate water capacity and there is also adequate sewer to serve this site. So from a city service standpoint, this site can be adequately served by all of those. So we touched on, I don't know if I can pull up the menu to erase that, but touch on the other inconsistency with the future land use map. So this property is designated as low-scale residential. I'll note that that category, as a result of the missing middle amendments a number of years ago, no longer provides a density cap or density range. Rather, it says that it envisions a range of housing types, including townhomes, and it says that you ought to kind of follow the precedent set up by existing development in the area. Right? This case, the R10 district allows detached, attached, and townhomes, prohibits the stacked apartments, consistent with that guidance. The uses and density that we have limited ourselves to is consistent with the townhome project development to the west, as well as the apartments to the south. To strengthen our kind of compatibility with those properties still in the county, we have added increased setback. We have added a requirement for fencing along those areas that are not otherwise impacted by environmental areas. And we also limited the massing of any townhome building to no more than 6 attached units. So I want to note we have 3 scenarios. Again, apologize for not being able to get the marks out of the way, but right, 120 single family, 170 mix, I believe 190 if townhomes. So just to put that in context, single family could only be built out. Yep. Thank you. If single family, that would be built out at max 4.3 units per acre. With a mix, just 6.1 units per acre. If it was all townhomes at 190, 6.8 units per acre. I want to note that if we just had zoned to the R6 district, right, without conditions, that this site would be permitted for up to 270 townhomes, right? So our condition, while it may be, or our request, while it may be R10, right, our conditions have actually limited our density and allowable scope of development to something less than the R6 district would allow. So again, based on this, we think we are consistent with the low-scale residential category, again, even more so than the R6 district would be. So in closing, I want to touch on consistency, reasonable, and in the public interest. Again, staff in its staff report has given you all the opinion that the request is inconsistent with the future land use map. State law vests actually in you, the Planning Commission, to ultimately make that recommendation of consistency. Based on the items just covered, our conditions, we would ask the Planning Commission make a finding of consistency with the future land use map. Staff has determined that we are consistent with the overall comprehensive plan. In terms of public interest, I want to note that you see Hartham Park Avenue that runs through, will run through the site, excuse me, a little bit to the south, but this project will construct and complete Hartham Park all the way out to Lily Lyles. Hartham Park runs all the way from Ligon Mill to the south out to Lily Lyles and is a significant way to get local traffic off of this segment of 401. This road, when constructed, will include both sidewalks and bike lanes above the curb and will provide, in addition to the development to the west, a direct sidewalk and bike lane link to the commercial that is existing and being built. And so, while today, maybe while some of these things are under construction in the area, may not be walkable, bikeable, upon completion of this project, we will have that bike and ped link down to that commercial that's being developed. So with that, I'll kind of close and again, ask Planning Commission to find that this request is consistent with the future land use map and comprehensive plan and is reasonable and in the public interest. And myself and members of our team are here to answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. We will reserve 1 minute and 6 seconds for response if it's required. We'll now provide 10 minutes for those in opposition. Is there anyone here we wish to speak against? It looks like that's a no, so we will open it up to the commission for questions from staff and the applicant. If there are no questions, we will go ahead and, Commissioner O'Haver.
Question for the applicant. The neighborhood meeting, you might have touched on this, I'm sorry. Was there any participation from those neighbors just on the northern boundary line? There's my...
Yes, we did. We did have participation both from property owners on the north as well as the south, as well as the gentleman that has the pond here to the west. And both at the first neighborhood meeting, second neighborhood meeting, and numerous conversations outside of those meetings, that was why we brought forward they asked for fencing, and then the gentleman that has the pond asked for, some smaller or increased stormwater detention. So that's why we have the 25-year storm for the drainage area going to that pond. And this site only makes up about 20% of the drainage area going to that pond. So yes, all of those transition conditions you see are in response to those requests from the neighbors.
Thank you. I'm comfortable with that. The reason for my question is just sort of the rear yard requirements to be consistent. Again, we've got neighbors to the north. They feel like a fence is okay. A lot of times when I bring this comment up, it's going from 20 to 0 or something. So I'm comfortable with what y'all have here and having the neighbors participate in that. So thank you.
And I'll also say just on the setback, because depending on how this, lots may be oriented, because there might have been the potential for a side yard to be adjacent, which would only require 5 feet. That's why we went to a 20-foot really around, that perimeter of the site.
Can you just help me really quickly? So the wall would be that straight line at the top?
So the fence would be here, as well as in this area here. And the reason that it doesn't extend further west in both areas is because there are Neuse River stream buffers there. So there is a requirement that within 40 feet of the property line, even if there are those natural features, that we put a fence on the outside of that as well. So.
Okay, so those fences help protect the stream.
Well, they both serve as a buffer to the neighbors, but they will be outside of the buffer.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the table for discussion, debate. Any comments? And if not, I'll open it up for a motion. Vice Chair Conklin.
So, this being on a major thoroughfare and so close to Rollsville, putting some density and access there does make sense to me. I'm trying to, I know you addressed it during the presentation, but condition number 2, talking about an apartment type building with units that are not separated by a horizontal party wall, which would imply that it's a townhome style development. Are these meant to be privately owned, or are these rental units that have one landlord owner?
Yes, so for the attached units, they are intended to be individual units for sale. That can happen in two ways. One is either the units are sold along with the dirt beneath, right? Or potentially they could be condominiumized and be sold that way. Some of this has to do with alley and public street requirements, and so just again preserving some flexibility to address those issues.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. No more comments.
All right, if there's no further comments or debate, open the floor for a motion. Commissioner O'Haver.
I move to recommend adoption of the proposed consistency statement dated April 14th, 2026, contained in the agenda materials, and to recommend approval of the zoning amendment.
Second.
Second.
Commissioner
This
Neptune got there
recommendation
first this
also
time.
includes an amendment to the future land use map to the extent described in the adopted consistency statement for zoning case Z4425.
Second.
All right, I think we have to take Commissioner Omakaye since she waited until the first motion was complete. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please show by raise of hands. All those opposed? It looks like that is a unanimous recommendation for approval. Thank you. Thank you to the applicant. All right, that concludes our rezoning cases for the day. So we'll move on down the agenda to other business. First up, we have the report from the chair. And I don't have anything special that I need to announce today. I thank you all for your comments. And I think today's discussion was very respectful and substantial. And I think this was a really good meeting. So thank you to everybody. And thank you for your patience as we continue to try to work to put some structure around the comments and the questions and figure that all out. So that'll do it for me. So thank you. We'll move on to the report from the members. And we'll start with Vice Chair Cochran.
So just for the record, the committee of the whole meeting on the 23rd is going to be led by Commissioner Fox, not me, because I'll be out of town. Thanks.
Sorry, before we go down the line, could we again confirm who will be able to make it to the April 24th committee of the whole meeting? 23rd, excuse me, I'm sorry. 4 p.m. So that was, I saw your hand, Commissioner Sanchez. Is that correct? All right, thank you very much. And move on down the line now. Thank you.
A brief note, there will be no text change committee meeting this month on the 15th. There will be no text change committee meeting. Thank you.
No new business, no report.
No report. I just want to say thank you for the effort to bring structure to our meeting. You're doing a great job. So I appreciate the clear question and comment period. It's similar to what we did on Design Review Commission, and I think it really just helps keep things tight. So thank you.
No report, but I'm not surprised Commissioner Walters made that comment. He was making sure I was in line with my questions there, so I appreciate that. No report. Again, I'll just say I think I already sent y'all an email, but unfortunately I'm not available due to a work conflict on the Committee of the Whole on the 23rd.
What room is the Committee of the Whole going to be in?
It's held in room 305 of the municipal building.
305. And I have a question, well, a request from staff. Is there a way that we can get a map that pinpoints and shows what zoning cases are coming up, what we've already approved, and what's in process?
That information is available on the city website. If you visit raleighnc.gov/development, you can see lists there of the pending requests, and there are also links there to a map that will show you recently approved and pending requests.
You said, what's their website again? I'm sorry.
raleighnc.gov/development. If you just go to the city website and search current development, it'll take you to the page.
Bynum, that's the portal?
No, that's actually pages that we maintain with map and list in addition to the portal.
Mm-hmm. That's all. Thank you. And thank you for your leadership. This was a great meeting.
Nothing to report.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. We will now move on to the report of the Assistant Director.
I don't think I have anything to add beyond what's published in the agenda and what we've discussed already. Thanks, everybody, for your service to the city.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here. And I think that does it for today. This meeting is hereby adjourned.